Welcome back, America. Late last month, the controversial UN climate summit called COP30, COP30, ended. As you may be aware, the Trump administration made the decision to skip this year's climate summit, and it turns out it was probably for good reason. Here to discuss COP30 is someone who was there in Brazil in person. He's Climate Depot publisher and former senior staff at the U.S. Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, our good friend, Marc Morano. Marc, welcome back.
Thank you, John. I'm back. It was 36 hours to get to Belém, Brazil, and it took 2 days to get back. It was far away. It was in a rainforest, and what a colossal, cop out. What a colossal disaster for this COP30 UN climate summit. Thank you.
Well, it started with an extraordinary moment, right? The revelation that they clear-cut a forest just so they could have their climate forest, which undercuts. But it ended in the last week with two pretty profound articles, one in Newsweek saying Trump is winning the global climate debate, and another in the New York Times acknowledging that climate activists are losing the messaging war. Now, the New York Times one was kind of interesting because they don't actually mention the fact that the reason Trump's winning the debate is that the facts are coming out on his side. All of those predictions never turned out to be true. Give us your thought on coming out of COP30, the realization that maybe the climate movement has lost its big mo.
They truly have. When CNN's own pollster does an entire segment about how the American public is no more concerned about climate change than they were in the late 1980s, it's over. I mean, I shouldn't say it's over because you have so much money and institutions and international organizations and academia all pumping this, and they've been doing it for 30 plus years. They're not going to just walk away. But it's at the low point here, and we need to kill it. And that's what the message I had to Donald Trump was: we need to make this permanent by getting out of the 1992 treaty, getting out of the endangerment finding, et cetera, where CO2 is regulated as a pollutant. But it's amazing because Newsweek's recognizing it. Politico is recognizing the disaster of this. The New York Times mentioning that the climate deniers, in their own words, are winning. And they use COP30 as an example. I mean, it was a master stroke of genius for President Trump to bypass COP30 in the Amazon. What I mean by bypass is even if he had sent a delegation, they would have probably been more obstructionist. Although in his first term, he sent delegations, and it turned out I tried to meet with them and did meet with them. It was like 80-20. This is a little bit of inside baseball, but essentially 80% of the delegation in Trump's first term when they went to the, now I've been to 21 out of 30, but of Trump's delegation, when they go to these conferences, was like 80% of the deep state permanent bureaucrats of the State Department. And they're all for the whole UN process. These are the bureaucrats who've been there. They're more at home with John Kerry being the climate envoy than anything to do with Donald Trump. And 20% of the staff was usually the Trump administration. And we worked with them at a UN climate summit in Germany. The Trump administration deviously, the administration appointees, deviously planted us in one of the events, and we were able to ask questions and things like this, stuff we never would have had access to. But by just boycotting it this year completely, it allowed all the BRICS nations from Brazil and Russia, Middle Eastern states, to literally just go in and basically co-opt and derail any. Not that this would have been an achievement. They wanted to have a statement at the end declaring a fossil-free fuel world at the end, and they were going to all cheer. We did it. Yeah, by 2050, we're going to be free. Just virtue signaling nonsense. They couldn't even get the virtue signaling nonsense because of Trump's absence tipped the whole scales behind the scenes.
Surprised that the American people have realized that the con is up. I question, though, the people who have been behind this movement for so long, because I do think that some of them were genuine. I do think that some of them who are not making money off of this probably believed that the world was going to end, that the polar bears were going to die, that the forest was going to crumble, all of those things. But there was a European leader there who said, what the F are we even doing here? So are the people who were originally bought in, are they also realizing that this all was basically a con?
Yeah, well, there's two cons here. Number one is that the UN claims we face a climate emergency, a climate catastrophe, climate crisis. That's con number one. It's a sort of a scientific con. And the second con is, even if we faced a climate emergency, the second con is that somehow the UN was going to alter and change the climate and make it all safe for everyone in the world. And that was actually probably the more absurd con in the first place, in the second place, that they actually believe that. So there's dual cons going on here. When you see the European leader saying, what the F are we doing here? He's realizing this process after 30 years, and you can look at the charts, CO2 has continued to climb in the atmosphere. There has been no effect whatsoever at these climates, at even reducing CO2 emissions, let alone allegedly reversing hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, which none of them are increasing on climate timescales anyway. So that is what's fascinating. And also you had I think it was 80 countries, didn't even, over 100 actually, didn't even bother to meet fulfill their pledges or make new pledges right into the run-up of this. Europe has basically been walking away from Germany. Even in England, there's all sorts of soundings that they're walking away from net zero because it's just not realistic. You have New York Governor Kathy Hochul basically saying we need reliable energy. I can't meet the climate goals. She's being attacked now from the left. You have Gavin Newsom now reaching out to oil companies in California. Don't leave the state. We need you here. It's important. Fossil fuels are important. Stuff you never would have heard even a year ago. I can't say it's over, but it's literally in as dormant a state as we've seen since 1992 when George H.W. Bush got us into this mess with the Rio Earth Summit Treaty, UN Framework Convention, which then led to 30 years of these climate summits. But, this went from COP30, you mentioned the Amazon rainforest, 8 miles cleared for the summit, to Clear-Cut 30. Then they couldn't use, the toilets went out, they couldn't use bathrooms for hours, world leaders had no access. Then they got the toilets running, but you couldn't use toilet paper, so we dubbed it Crap 30. And then they had a huge fire. Which had huge emissions, by the way. They shut the conference down another day, which even the media picked on was more than symbolic. The UN conference is in flames, is in tatters, which is exactly what it was. But then it became Robo-COP because even after all this failure, they not only announced next year's conference, onward and upward, they're going to Turkey, but they announced 2 years. COP32 is going to be in Ethiopia, Africa, which I can't imagine if that's going to go that well, given that it's not in a heightened state of development or economic activity. I don't know that they can handle 50,000 delegates coming in to use restaurants and public transit and the infrastructure, because certainly Belém, Brazil couldn't handle it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Sometimes just getting out of the way and letting the left collapse is the more prudent thing to do. And that's what Donald Trump did.
Stay home and watch it. Yes.
Yeah, it was really remarkable. And yet there's so many Americans that care about clean air and environment water. It can be done without all of this alarmism. That's a lesson of the last 30 years. Marc, you've been teaching us that for a long time. Great to have you with us one more time for a great update. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, what a great solid voice on this issue. All right, folks, quick commercial break. When we come back, Dr. Peter McCullough, he always brings the goods when he's here. I'm sure we got some new science news right around the corner. But first, a quick message from our sponsors. We'll be right back. Hey, America, the FBI has been warning about a type of real estate fraud on the rise called home title theft. And your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on a single document, use a fake notary stamp, then file it with the county. And just like that, boom, they're on record as owning your home. Using your ownership, they then take out loans against your equity or even sell your property, and you're not going to know about it until you get a foreclosure or collection notice in the mail, and that's not going to be a good moment. That's why I partnered with Home Title Lock, so you can protect your equity and find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code JTN at HometitleLock.com. You'll get a free title history report and a free trial. Their $1 million triple lock protection. That's a great deal. $1 million to protect your home. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title records, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud occurs, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix it. Find out why I trust Home Title Lock. Protect yourself like I did. Don't be a victim. Protect your equity today. Go to HometitleLock.com and use that promo code JTN. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code JTN.